Today we are going to talk about my recovery and getting my gun rights back and what I had to do to get my gun rights back. When I was busted with 93 grams of meth 6.5 years ago, I went to jail, I bailed out, and I went to treatment, and then I did treatment for about a year, and then I went to court, and I was convicted, sentenced to 4 months in county jail and 25 years of probation with 5 years hanging over my head. I also had to do mandatory drug testing from the day I got out on bail. That would be 5 days after I was arrested. Had to keep doing that every day, call in. They called it the color wheel or whatever. And after years and years of manufacturing, selling, and using meth, I had accumulated a measly $5,000, and that was just enough to bail out of jail. And then I was broke. I also had to attend recovery meetings in order to get my son back because it was court ordered. He had to live with his grandmother, who lived next door, my mom, and that was the last thing I wanted him to do. And so I was worried, if I was going to go to, at the time I didn't know if I was going to go to prison or not, and I didn't know if he was going to, stay there for a long time or what. I had no idea. So I had to get him back. And at that time I also didn't have a driver's license or a job. And to get my license back, I had to blow into an Intoxilock breath analyzer in my truck for 3 years, 3 years straight, to get my driver's license restored. And 3 years cost me about $14,000 because I had to pay $400 a month of the rental of the Intoxilock, the fee, my insurance, which was sky high, and my gas and everything else. And it was really expensive. And then if I missed 1 month, I'd have to go all the way back to the first month and do it all over again. So I managed to get through that. And then, bear in mind that my 3 daughters, my parents, my siblings, had absolutely no idea that I had been leading a secret life of dealing meth for the last 17 years, and none of them knew anything about meth at all. My whole family, along with the whole court system, knew that I was destined to fail because of the statistics and the low success rate. Any information that they could find on meth was what they found on the internet, which wasn't good. A lot of stigma, a lot of bad stories, a lot of you can imagine. But the last thing on my mind at the time was regaining my gun rights. I mean, that wasn't even a thought. But so 2 years into my recovery, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and basically I had to. It took me 2 years for me to admit that I was depressed, and the therapist that I had made me realize, and so I was depressed. And so at that time I had to dig deep and pull my head out of my ass and finally grow up at the age of 55. All I knew is that my 3 grown daughters, my 11-year-old son had just lost their mother to cancer, and they did not need any added stress because of their dad doing more stupid shit. So I struggled through those obstacles, but got through them. But then the pandemic hit, and the only job I could find was tree service, lawn care, because everything was shut down. There was no jobs available. Everybody was in a panic, and it was rough. And I was depressed. I then became a med cab driver, and that is when everything turned around because I found a thing called gratitude. To all my passengers, I was their lifeline, from getting them from their homes to their medical appointments, kidney dialysis, or their much-needed dose of methadone. I realized that the people in the backseat of my cab were in dire straits, way worse than mine. Some of them had a short time to live, and some of them passed away because of COVID or illness or kidney failure. One woman named Barb had beat throat cancer and wanted to go shopping, so She took the bus to the local mall and choked to death while eating at the food court, and nobody knew what was going on. She was alone, and I found out on Monday morning when I went to pick her up. And this is a woman who I gave a ride to at least 4 times a week. I joked around with her, I flirted with her, and it was really rough. And then, like another time, there was a 13-year-old boy gets in my cab, and I had to drive him to school every morning along with 3 other kids. And he spread COVID to me and everybody else that I provided a ride to that day. 1 week later, I found out that Roger, an 87-year-old dialysis patient, had died from COVID along with his son, who I had known both of them for at least 35 years. So all of my clients were my friends that I had a relationship for a whole year because they requested only me as their driver. I noticed that none of them ever complained, and I mean they never complained. To be in such bad shape and such really serious problems, they never complained, and so I started to feel this deep gratitude for what I had and for my health that was pretty good, and that I had no reason to complain about anything at all. So it was like eye-opening. So I began feeling emotions that I never felt before for a long time. Emotions of compassion and empathy for other people. I made up my mind that I was going to help even more people with even bigger problems. So I went over to the local Career Force Center, and someone was there to help this 57-year-old caveman put together a resume. I didn't know shit about computers, which I sent out on jobs I saw on Indeed. And that's when a local mental health center reached out and liked my story and signed me up for training to be a peer support specialist. They hired me, and now I help people with severe mental illness and also people that have struggled with substance use disorders. I now make a good living doing honest work for honest pay that doesn't include harming my community like I did for so many years. Because of my efforts and hard work, I was scheduled to see my probation officer every 6 months, and she had told me that they were going to end my probation at the beginning of 2024, which would be a little over 5 years for my time being on probation. So they were going to lower it 20 years, from 25 to 5, because my efforts and because I worked so hard. So about 5 months ago, I walked into my probation office, and I was going to meet with my probation officer, but there was this one lady there that I'd never seen, and she comes out and says, "Are you Mr. Joel? Joel, is that you?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Come with me, follow me to the back here," and we went into her office, and she said, "I got good news for you." She said, "There's been some new legislation, and you're basically done. You're done with probation." And she said, "Usually we just send out a letter to the person, and that's it, and they don't even have to come in." So I'm thinking to myself, well, why did she make me come in? I don't know if I was kind of worried or what, but she said, "The reason I had you come in because I wanted to meet you in person." I said, "Really? Why?" And she told me that she had read my file, and that and all the good things that I've done, and I give back to the community, and the job I have, and how I help everybody. And she said, "At first it must have been really hard for you to get clean." And I told her, I said, "Well, actually, it really wasn't that hard." And I said, "If you got a minute, I'll tell you about it." And she said, "Sure, I got all the time in the world." So what happened was, when I got, like I told you guys, when I got out of jail, and my son went next door to my mom and dad's house, I was super paranoid. I was is still, in my addict mind, still paranoid. I thought my mom was trying to steal my son from me, which, thinking back, of course she was. She was worried about her grandson, and she's worried about me harming him somehow. Um, so when I went over there one time, to get Devin, because we were able to go for walks in the community and bike rides and stuff like that. So when I went over there to pick him up, I left my phone over there on record because I thought it was a good idea for me to find out what my mom and dad were talking about. To just me being a tweaker, trying to being paranoid, and so I left it over there on record. And then later, when I dropped Devin back off, I grabbed my phone, I brought it home. When I played the recording, I couldn't believe my ears. It was my mom and dad talking. They were terrified. They actually thought that I was going to rob them and steal their safe and their money and harm them and kill them or whatever, because the only information that they could find on meth was online, and it was all bad. So I went, holy shit! I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. So I had to do something. I had to do something fast. I had to turn this shit around, And so what I did was, and I was telling the probation officer all this, and she just was just listening, And I said, what happened was, I decided that I was gonna put myself in my dad's shoes. What was his vision of me getting clean, or me staying clean, or me, getting better. And so I took that into consideration. Then I went, what's my mom's vision? I wonder what mom's vision would be. And I'll tell you right now, she was pissed. She wanted to see me go to prison and sit there for 5 years or something, And so I knew what her vision was. It wasn't that good, but so then after that, I went. My 4 children, all 3 of my daughters, they all lived out of. Well, 2 lived in Minneapolis. 1 lived in Washington at the time, I think. And what's their vision? How would they want me to get clean? And at first, the answer was easy. They all wanted me to go. They wanted to see me go to uh, Narcotics Anonymous, because that's what everybody did, and I did. I tried every single type of recovery meeting, and I did that, and so I went through all my children, and my son. He was 11 years old, and they all just lost their mother, so I was in a pretty bad spot, and Devin. Right after his mom died, I was in the garage selling meth while he was in the house with the German Shepherd playing video games. Where, when he needed me most, I wasn't there. I was home, but I wasn't there. So then after that, I looked at all my siblings. Like my oldest brother John, he lives in town. He's very well-to-do. He travels in different circles than I did, obviously, but he was embarrassed because I had the same last name as him. All his friends knew I was his brother, and it was all over the papers and the radio and everything else. So he was embarrassed, and he was pissed also. So what he had visualized probably was for me to totally turn over a new life. And so so all this, all these, all this stuff, what it did was it gave me a good direction of what I should do in my recovery. And so with all the guesswork out of it, I just went by that, and it seemed to work out really, really well. And so I told the probation officer this, and she said, "Wow." She goes, "That's amazing." And she goes, "I've never heard anything like it." And she goes, the reason I wanted to talk to you in person is because what I suspected, and now after hearing what you said, it's confirmed that you are our greatest success story. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, and this wasn't the county jail, this was the DOC. And I'm like, holy shit, well, thanks. And I said, well, I was thinking of maybe getting my gun rights back. And she told me it's very hard to do. And it's very hard to do. But with what you did and how you've approached your life, I think you got a pretty good shot at it. I said, really? Okay, so I think I'll do that, Thanks. I told her also, I said, I'm going to someday start a YouTube channel, and so I can reach a bigger audience and hopefully help more people. And she said, well, although me and you are done, here's my card, and when you start that podcast or that channel, let me know and I'll make sure that the right people get to see it. I said, cool. So then I walked out of there. I was feeling like great, So I walked out of there, and first thing I did, I took probably a month off, but then I got right on the deal. Wanted to get my gun rights back, so I got a lawyer, and cost me $3,000 to get a lawyer, and I got all the letters together, letters from my bosses and people who did the recovery meetings and everything else, and my brothers and my son. He wrote a really good letter, and then I had to write a letter too. So with all that, I went in. The lawyer drew up a petition, and it was scheduled for last a couple days ago, and that was January 26th, and it was a Zoom hearing. So I was at my house, and when the hearing started, the prosecutor it was his turn to talk first, and he basically told me and told the judge that it's too soon, and that he should wait 5 more years, and it's unheard of to have somebody get their gun rights back this soon. And then it was my lawyer's turn to talk, and he said he went through everything that I gave, and he told my story, and so it all looked good, but I wasn't sure. And well, the prosecutor says the only reason that he has got done with his probation in 5 years is because of the new legislation. And that pissed me off. So all that, the fact that it was reduced from 25 to 5 years was out the window, because he was making me look bad, and I was pissed. So I didn't know if I was going to get the gun rights back or not. But then the judge says, do you have anything that you want to add? And I said, yeah, I do. So I told him, I said, it's like this. Even if I don't get my gun rights reinstated today, that I can still go hunting. I can still get a crossbow, and I can still go hunting. But when I got charged, and I was telling the judges, I said, when I got charged, my son was 11 years old, and basically for the last 6.5 years, he couldn't do anything because I was in recovery. And when I was 11 years old, that's when I started to learn from my father how to hunt, how to shoot guns, and basically he was denied that. That opportunity was taken away from him because of my poor decisions, and I was just wanting my gun rights back so I could teach him how to use a gun, instead of, now when he's 18, because today's his birthday. It was the very same day, and then we could go hunting. We got land up north. We could go hunting with his grandfather, my father-in-law, and then we could go hunting, and then, but setting all that aside, might be the most important part is that right now I have an opportunity because I'm off probation to go into the jails and tell my story and try and inspire people to maybe take a different road, a different path, and maybe stay clean, or or even better, you know. So so for me to go into that jail with my gun rights intact and to show them that it is possible, that anything is possible, and even if they decide to pursue their gun rights and they go 5 or 6 years clean like I did and they get denied, it's still not going to matter because now they're clean. They've been clean for 5 or 6 years, and to them it probably isn't going to matter. So this opportunity that we have here, we don't want to lose it, and that's all I ask. And not for me, but for everybody else. And so I knew I was trying to stay calm, but I knew I fucking smoked that prosecutor's ass. And the judge says, "Well, I am going to take a chance on you, and I'm going to reinstate your gun rights, and you can consider this a birthday gift to your son." And I just went, yeah! I was so happy. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, so that's my gun rights story, and if you've listened to it all the way to the end, I hope you did. Tell me what you think, and leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's keep this going. Ask me anything. There's some comments, but I wish there was a lot more. So have a good week. We'll see you back here next week.